65.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of My Mom Sandy. We are your hosts. I am Josh Fasten, and the woman next to me is officially vaccinated, has gotten her 2 doses of the vaccine of the SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic vaccine. This is My Mom Sandy.
Yeah, I just actually turned on our podcast on my phone. Did you hear it in the background?
No, I
music?
I heard you doing something, and I was like, what is she doing?
Yeah. No, it just accidentally went on. I was checking to see what episode it was. So
Right.
anyway, yes, I'm fully vaccinated until they come out with a booster because, we've got variants.
So when was your second dose, and how was the experience for you?
Second dose was last Tuesday. I didn't get the VIP treatment that I got the first time around.
Interesting, Bonnie. Interesting.
Yeah, they were super, super busy. I mean, the last time I was there, I swear, there was maybe like 5 people getting vaccines. They had a big testing center outside, but this time around, they had a big, long line of people outdoors, and they had to move everything up to the second floor. And it was, you go in and you sit in this room with probably, I don't know, maybe 12 or 15 other people, socially distanced, of course.
And they go around the room and they just jab all. Do they use the same needle?
No, yes, they use the same needle. It's kind of like the same anal swab as well. No, you do. You go to the counter and you kind of check in and you do your paperwork, and there's all questions they ask you every time, like if you're on blood thinners, if you have allergies, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so you go do that, and then you go back and sit down, and then they call you to this back area where they have like lots of rooms with curtains dividing them, and they have probably, I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe 10 of those. And you go into one of those and they give you the vaccine, and then they go and they sit you in this hallway down the hall a bit, and you wait for, some people only waited for 15 minutes. I had to wait for 30 because I do have allergies to drugs. So anyway, then you do that, and then you leave and you check out, and you got your little vaccine card. And I don't know why they didn't make it so that it's like, so that it easily fits into like a plastic picture thing for your wallet.
Yeah, it's big, right? I mean, I feel like the pictures I've seen of it, it's like a 3x5 maybe, or bigger.
It's not a 3x5, but it's too big to fit into anything, that's out there to like laminate it, except to laminate it. And it's kind of stiff cardboard, but not that stiff. I mean, I could see where if you got to carry that damn thing around with you everywhere. I actually went and got, like, I had these, those plastic, name tag things where you fill in you write in the name on the card, and then you put it in the plastic, and then you can pin it on your shirt.
Oh, it's like a badge holder.
Yeah, like a badge holder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a package of those. So I opened one up, and I had, of course, it's too big to fit into one of those. So I had to use 2 of them and kind of tape it together just so that it has some strength to it. Because, I mean, I can see this being like your passport to life. Well, so number one. And number 2, I can also see them at some point charging you to replace it.
Well, so that's kind of a question that I have, is that like, what happens when, hold on. Okay. What happens when that, like, cause it's just like written on with like penning, right?
Yeah. So like if you spilled something on there.
Right. Or even more so, like if it is like, let's just say you fold it up like a man, like he folds it up, he puts it in his wallet. Like, I mean, that shit ain't gonna last forever. So like, what happens when the penning starts to kind of like go away? I mean, like, yeah, do you get a new card? Or is this a yearly vaccine now?
I don't think we know that part of it just yet. But as far as getting a yearly card or even getting another card, it's like the gal who checked me in, we talked about the cards because I had to show her my card to show that I had my first vaccine, and she took all my information off of there. So so she was saying, she's like, yeah, she goes, this is like a weird size. She goes, I want to laminate mine, but I'm not sure if I can, if we're allowed to. And I said, yeah, I said, it's not going to stand up to a lot of wear and tear. And she goes, yeah, she goes, I can see at some point that they're going to start charging you like $3 for replacing the card, another moneymaker for the government.
Well, the thing is, like,
you
I
know.
wouldn't even mind. Like, I wouldn't mind spending $3 or $5 if they sent me like a credit card that like had my details on it and it was like embossed the way that they like emboss credit cards or whatever.
Yeah.
But the other thing though is that if this is a yearly thing, then I could see them just being like, oh, okay, fucking your card's out, go get your fucking vaccine again. Like.
Well, the other thing is that I don't know how easy it is to replicate it.
Well, I was gonna say that too. Is like all these people have been posting their cards like on their Instagram and being like, oh, vaccinated, like first dose, second dose, and it's like, I know what it looks like. I would imagine that like anyone who's decent at, photo, I mean, it's like you're not printing money here. You're literally just printing a fucking index card, putting some details on it. So it's like, then you have that, are you going to have people who are going to be showing that to get on planes and stuff? Like, yeah, I don't know.
Or are you going to be allowed to take a picture of it and show it to get on an airplane or get into a concert so you don't have to always have the card with you?
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then fucking A, you can just Photoshop it and put it in your phone. And
yeah, I feel like they've got to barcode it at some point or something so that you can like scan it, or like just implant something like in your hand so you can like fingerprint sensor and then they can control you.
Well, they've already done that with a vaccine. It's called a liquid microchip.
Perfect. So let me ask you, do you feel, so you have about another week until you're the full like 95%, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Supposedly, but again, we've got the naysayers, the doom and gloomers. Oh yeah, you can't, even if you're vaccinated, you're still not good. So, like, fuck them. I mean, I have like another week.
Fuck them.
I know.
So do you feel safe? Sick. Do you feel safer? I mean, do you feel better?
I feel safer, yes. I'm not going to go out and party and shit like that.
Right, obviously. You weren't really going out and partying before COVID, but, you're not going to run down the street and lick telephone poles, but do you feel better? Do you feel better about going to the store?
Just the concrete in front of my house.
Perfect.
It has the right amount of salt and calcium in it.
Oof. I mean, like, oh, good, jeez. Yeah, I mean, like, I had that feeling a little bit after I got better, where I did feel, because it was like, oh, well, you have antibodies and, although reinfection is possible, they were saying that, the reinfection rate is very, very low. So I did feel better. I felt, there was a point in time where I was just like, okay, I feel pretty good about doing stuff.
Well, and you had your antibody test. You have antibodies.
Yeah, I have the antibodies. They're there.
So that's a good thing. The problem is I don't know how long it lasts for, number one. And number two, they say even with the vaccine that you can still get it, but it might present itself as a cold or, something very minor as opposed to something that ends you up on a respirator in the hospital.
Well, and I think that's the whole point of it, right? And we've talked about this before, so I don't want to deep dive back into that, but the vaccine was never put out, at least this vaccine, these Pfizer's, these Modernas, and I would say even the J&J, they were not put out to make it so you could not get COVID. It was basically so that you had a fighting chance to, maybe you
survive it.
To survive it, right? Yeah. So it's like maybe you have a sore throat for a couple of days, maybe you have a fever for a day, but you're not going into the hospital, right? And I think that for elderly people, for people who are 65 and older, I think it's a great thing. It's like, let's get the fucking numbers down. Let's get the strain and the stress off the hospitals.
You calling me elderly?
I'm saying for elderly people. You're 49, so obviously I wouldn't be saying that.
I know. I don't know how I got the vaccine when I did, but phew, what a relief.
But we will.
But I am concerned about I'm still concerned about long-term effects of the vaccine. Because I've had some medical issues since, and I just, I can't help but think that it didn't really cause it, but that maybe, the body has a balance, and when you start throwing in like a big super dose of, a booster of immunity, who knows? I don't really know exactly how the body works. If it, maybe takes some protection away from some parts of the body to deal with this new thing, or I don't know. But like I said, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting journey to see. Look, tons of people are getting vaccinated every single day. So it's going to be interesting to see, over the next 6 months, over the next year, not only what happens with COVID, but what happens with everyone who's getting vaccinated. And, look, this could be, what if you live forever because of this?
Yeah, I would only want to live forever if I could live fairly pain-free. And I have my doubts about that.
This could be the
and mentally okay, pain-free and mentally stable. I don't think that lasts forever. Mm-hmm. I don't think the brain and the body are meant to last forever. But yeah, I would be more concerned about it taking you out early in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. I mean, I just know that there's things that I want to do. I want to go to Home Depot. I want to look for some fabric for my chairs. There's things that I need to go to the doctors and have some stuff done, and I don't want to have to be super paranoid about doing it. So, so this so far is okay.
Good. All right, good.
So anyway, and you have antibodies, so you and I don't have to mask up.
I know. I mean, totally. All right. So we missed last week. There was just some scheduling stuff and things happening. So we weren't able to do a podcast last week. You were getting vaccinated on Tuesday morning. So there was just a lot happening. But there was something we had talked about on the last couple episodes that I think was interesting enough. And I wanted to do kind of like, what we had done with like the Elisa Lam thing. Also kind of stay off of the COVID and the government talk because I just feel like that's all you see right now.
But I do have to, I have one thing I want to say about government stuff.
Do you want to do that? Do you want to just do it now?
I just want to do it right now. Yeah, get it right out of the way. I haven't been reading a lot of news lately, but I did catch this news story. In San Francisco, they spent $16.1 million to purchase 262 tents for homeless people. Is that fucking ridiculous? That's $190 per night, $61,000 per year per tent. And this is what's infuriating. This is why we have Skid Row. This is why we have so many fucking homeless people. And by the way, I'm seeing pictures of them in Washington, D.C. I mean, again, what the fuck? What is the government doing about any of this? I don't understand why it's going on and why you're paying $190 a night to sit in a fucking tent.
Yeah, I've stayed at hotels. Like when I was on tour for like $66 a night. They were way better than a tent. There's a problem, right? There's a problem. We talked about this, and I don't want to go. Because we had a whole conversation about this, but there is a homeless problem, and I don't think that let's spend
it's nationwide, and
totally.
I don't understand why it's not being addressed.
The solution is not let's just buy millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of tents. That's not the solution to this. Like that's not going to work. And at what point do you say, "Hey, okay, so now we have too many tents on the street. So then what? Then what do you do? Then what happens? You can't just say, here's some tents." Like that's not.
I mean, they had this picture of this. It looked like a square of some sort, where, like a town square in San Francisco, where the tents were like socially distanced. So but it was like seriously, and then they brought in that was another. I saw a homeless thing on homeless people in Washington D.C. where they brought in a porta potty. Well, I don't, a porta potty seems to me like maybe the easiest way to spread COVID. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not fixing the problem, but I'm really ashamed that this is a problem, not just in our state, but everywhere else. And I know down here in LA, when they talked about, when they're taking extra money out of our sales tax to fund housing for the homeless. Where the fuck it is, I don't know. They talked about couldn't buy a home for a homeless person for less than $500,000. I'm like, man, Josh, you should be homeless.
Well, again,
you should have a $500,000 home.
Again, that's the whole thing too, right? Like, I don't mind paying a little bit more in sales tax to help this situation, but again, it has to be the government and the officials have to do better than saying, "Oh, well, here we bought tents." Because that's not fucking. That doesn't work. And by the way, you can go to fucking you can go to Big Five and buy tents for like fucking $50. So it's like,
I know.
Fucking,
that's our government. And, it's just very easy to spend somebody else's money, and that's basically tax money. When you pay your taxes in a couple weeks, some of that money is going to go towards these stupid, really, really expensive crap that doesn't need to be. I mean, it's just fucking unreal. I mean, like years ago, they talked about, the federal government, there was contracts out there for $70 for a screw. It's
crazy.
Are you fucking
crazy?
Yeah. Are you fucking kidding me? Anyway, again, it's really easy to spend somebody else's money, but in essence, that's our money. That's your money. That's my money. That's, money that could go towards important and, humane things.
Well, and that's the whole thing is like
people out of poverty.
There was something, there was something recently, I think there was like 9 or 11 politicians that wouldn't sign off on the minimum wage increase, and it showed like how much money they made or their like net worth. They're all, 10.4 million, 12.7 million. Like, I mean, these people
they all are, Josh.
That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter if they signed off on it.
No, I know, but I think
they
that
have no clue as to what it's like to live on $15 an hour.
But I think that it's
you can't live like that here.
Totally, but I think that it's ballsy to, at least if you're saying, hey, yes, let's push this through, right? At least you're giving people a fucking shot. But to be like, no, we don't think that this should, we don't think minimum wage should go up. But yet the people who are making that ruling are fucking millionaires. Just shows the divide, the bigger divide between the rich and the poor,
Exactly. But here's the thing, Josh, it's even worse than that, because the people that are pushing $15 an hour, surely they know in the state of California that you cannot survive at $15 an hour, 40 hours a week. It's not fucking possible. You just can't do it. So it's even more insulting that they think that $15 an hour is an answer to the problem, because it ain't. It's just not. And on top of that, they go behind the back of, they allow cheap labor to come in from India and China so that the big tech companies and the major manufacturing companies can get cheap labor. So, I mean, it's even worse, it's worse because it's like they say one thing, but all their actions are totally against it. The reason they don't want to do a $15 an hour minimum wage, and I kind of agree with it, is, first of all, $15 an hour in Idaho is like way, way better than $15 an hour in LA, right? I mean, the cost of living is, I mean, you're probably going to be a rich man in Idaho because you're probably minimum waging at like $8 an hour. So that's great for that person. But is that really necessary? I mean, shouldn't it be like incremental depending on maybe where you live? Number one. Number two, it's not a good time to raise minimum wage right now because there's so many small businesses that law would hit, and people who want to go back to working, may get laid off. Businesses may not be able to afford to pay that right now. It's just not a time to do that type of thing would be like prior to the COVID.
Okay, fair enough. But they've got to do. The
economy was booming.
Totally, but they've got to do something, right? Like, you can't just keep letting it go on the way that it's going on, where the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, the working class is kind of just staying the same, but yet house prices are going up, rent prices are going up. Like, when I moved out, I don't know, mid to late 20s, I think I was paying, what the fuck was it, $1,050? $1,050 a month in rent, maybe $1,100. And then I think they raised it. And then I ended up moving into another apartment a couple years after. And that apartment was $1,145, and then they raised that after, 3 or 4 years to $1,600, and now I'm paying just short of $2,000. And yet, I mean, I've had to raise my prices and take the pandemic out of this, but like I've had to raise my prices on haircuts to be able to live. Like I couldn't continue to charge what I was charging, 10 years ago. I wouldn't be able to make enough money on rent,
Listen, my mother pays $2,300 and she lives in a smaller place than you. And on top of that, the thing that really pisses me off is that if you went to rent an apartment in that building now, they're only charging $1,900 for it.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's like, and when the lease was up, would they renegotiate with me? No. The reason they don't renegotiate is because if they did it with me, they'd have to do it with everybody.
Well, they also know that like a lot of the times it's a fucking hassle. This is where they get you. A lot of these places know it's a fucking hassle to move. It sucks. No one likes moving.
Oh, I know. What they did was they were nice enough to offer me a 2-bedroom, like across the courtyard. And I'm like, number one, we don't need a 2-bedroom. Number two, I'm going to have to hire people during COVID to come in and move my mother and all of her stuff. And it's like, to me, it's just not worth it.
But even, take COVID out of the...
But that's the thing. That's
right.
Where they get you. It's a pain in the ass.
And take COVID out of the equation. It sucks to move regardless of when it is. It's not fun. Moving is not fun, And, calling the internet company and calling the electric company and like doing all the shit sucks. It sucks. It's a hassle. And that's where they get you because they're like, oh, look, even when they start raising rent, you sign a lease for a year, they raise your rent after the first year, they raise your rent after the second year. They're betting on the fact that like, oh, he's not going to move out. They're not going to move out. Yeah. They'll just pay it. They'll pay it because moving out is a fucking hassle, And I think a lot about that now because my lease I think is up in like September, October. Yeah. And I think about it. I think like, well, what if they raise the rent? A, how much can they raise it? B, what would I do? Because everything that I looked at, like this was one of the cheapest places where I'm living now was one of the cheapest financially of what I was looking at. So even if they raise it, it's still going to be on par with what some of the other buildings I was looking at were costing at that time. Who knows what they're going to be a year later, You would hope that some of these places
I think a lot of places have not done rent increases. Like, again, my mother's building is, they're renting them at $1,900. But what she did tell me was that as soon as the COVID thing is over, they're going to raise the rent. So they're going to raise the rent for new renters. So what I'm saying is that I think depending on, how much property is available here, availability, what the going rate is, how badly somebody wants to rent the place. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, especially in some of these small buildings, if you couldn't even negotiate your rent,
Well, and I got to imagine that whenever the moratorium is up, there's going to be a ton of vacancies. And I think a lot of these people are going to be trying to get tenants in. So you would hope that the tenants who are paying rent and are in buildings that maybe that these places are not going to raise rent just out of good faith to be like, hey, we're not going to like, these people have been paying rent on time for the fucking last whatever. We're not going to go fucking hit them, during a pandemic or directly after a pandemic. I have no doubt that rents are going to go up at some point in the future. That's just the fucking game, right? Unless everything crashes. But, yeah, it's just, fucking.
Well, you do have you certainly would have a case to say, look, you guys you need to understand that. I mean, they're still making the same amount of money unless people aren't paying them. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I pay my rent on the first of every month. I've, never missed a month. But my work's been cut in half, I'm working 2 days a week.
That's why I'm wondering what, it would be cruel and unusual for them to raise your rent during a pandemic when our city has been closed for damn near close to a year, starting the 19th of March. Things have been open and closed off and on, and, businesses are gone, and, it's really quite pathetic, actually.
And we will cross that bridge when we get there, but I want to talk about something because I feel like this is what happens. We start the podcast, we have this whole thing, and then we digress into all these different things and
I digress. Go ahead.
So
what do you want to talk about?
All right. So you had talked about, and we've discussed it on the podcast before, but in keeping up with the unsolved mysteries and the Elisa Lam case and everything, I felt like there was a lot of people who had reached out to me who listened to our episodes on Elisa Lam, and they had never known about those cases. So I want to bring another case kind of to light.
Did they watch the special? Because
some did.
Feel like Yeah, because I feel like that really brought it into focus. And I know, like, a friend of mine was saying that a bunch of people that he kind of hangs out with have been talking about Elisa Lamb and the
I mean, I've had several people who were like, oh, I watched the Cecil Hotel thing, or I listened to the My Mom and Sandy episode, and then I watched the thing, and then and I think that when you have something on the platform of like a Netflix or a Hulu or an Amazon, now it's in the spotlight a little bit. So I wanted to touch on one that you've talked about several times on the podcast that not necessarily is in the spotlight, but it is the curious case of Rebecca Zahau.
Yes.
Now, Rebecca Zahau. So this is what the fucking I'm on a website, filmdaily.co. I was trying to find some because I just wanted to give everyone like the rundown before we get into it.
Well, we have talked about this case.
We have. Before. So we're going to kind of rehash it, and then we'll just kind of go over the death stuff, and then we'll talk about kind of, what we think happened, and then we'll fucking end it. So Rebecca Zahau, that's Zahau. Zahau. So she was a Burmese immigrant, having fled Burma with her family. She was raised Protestant, married a nursing student in 2002, but they divorced 9 years later. Rebecca went on to become an ophthalmic.
What? Are we talking about eyes?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. How do you say that?
I don't know. I'm not reading it. So
all right. So she became an ophthalmic technician.
That's what happens when we do remote
in Arizona, and it was at this job, examining people's eyes, that Rebecca would then lock eyes with Jonah Shaknai.
A very rich man.
They began dating in 2009, about 2 years before she and her husband divorced. At first, Rebecca had no idea that Jonah Shaknai was the CEO of Medicis Pharmaceutical, a multi-million-dollar medical cosmetics company.
Don't get me started on pharmaceutical companies.
Rebecca's sister, Mary Zahau Leonner, said that their parents were a little trepidatious about the relationship, perhaps because of their conservative background, but there was no bad blood between them per se. Rebecca had becoming close to Jonah's son, Max. So Jonah had a son. What just happened? This website that I'm on keeps like popping me back to the top, which is not good. Max was a child from Jonah's second marriage, and Rebecca and he had developed a very warm relationship with each other. Now, while Max's mother wasn't exactly keen on her ex-husband's girlfriend being close with her son, sometimes she made it difficult, she also didn't forbid it. Now, let's get into the juicy shit here, okay? On July 11th, 2011, 6/11/11. Oh no, July 7/11/11.
There you go.
Okay. A terrible accident occurred in Jonah's Coronado, California mansion. So Coronado's down like San Diego area, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, it's on an island. It's a very ritzy place.
So Rebecca and her teenage sister, Xena, as in warrior princess, were babysitting Max. Rebecca emerged from a room in the house to find that Max had somehow plummeted off the second floor railing. Rebecca discovered him face down on the floor and not breathing. She alerted her sister and they called 911. Max sustained injuries to his spinal cord and facial bones, but doctors were able to bring him into a coma state. Not good. Rebecca was beside herself. Her sister Mary recalls Rebecca freaking out about how mad Max's mother would be. "She's gonna kill me," Mary said, Rebecca repeated. 2 days later...
That's ominous.
2 days later, Rebecca was found dead, hanging nude by her neck off a balcony. But Max's mother had been holding a vigil by her son's bedside at the night of Rebecca's death. 5 days later, Max passed away due to brain damage. So let's see here. Max's death was officially ruled an accident on July 26, 2011. But the question now was, what on earth had happened to Rebecca? The only people in the house on the night of Rebecca's death were Rebecca herself and Jonah's brother, Adam Shaknai. Adam had flown in from Tennessee. See, it just did it again. Hold on. Scroll back down.
That's what you get for reading. You should have just memorized all this.
No. Okay, Adam had flown in from Tennessee to support his brother Jonah during such a trying time. Jonah said that Rebecca and Adam didn't know each other well, but that they were both still exceedingly cordial to one another. If this really was the case, it begs the question of how Rebecca died the way she did. Adam had called 911 at 6:48 in the morning after Rebecca had died to inform them of her condition. And I quote, "I got a girl, hung herself," he reported to the emergency operators. He proceeded to let them know that he didn't think she was breathing, but that he was performing CPR. A neighbor later reported that they had heard a woman screaming for help the night before. Adam had been staying in the estate's guest house and said that when he noticed Rebecca's body hanging from the balcony that morning, that he cut her down to try to help her. Despite the fact that Rebecca's corpse was found completely bound and gagged, police ruled Rebecca's death a suicide. They even went as far as reenacting how one might possibly go about binding themselves before jumping to their deaths by hanging to prove it was possible. So let me just say this, and then we'll get into it. So, So this is, I'm going to kind of paint a picture here. This is a little graphic. I wanted to say that ahead of times, but if you're not into this kind of shit, just turn the podcast off. She was, so she was over the balcony naked, hung from the neck. The rope that Rebecca supposedly used to hang herself was so long that it was tied all the way to a bedpost in the bedroom and then draped over the balcony. She was found hanging off. She was found with her hands and feet both bound by a thick red rope, and Rebecca's mouth was gagged by a blue t-shirt that was wrapped around her neck, and she was naked. So, that... Yeah,
sounds like something I'd do if I was going to commit suicide. Seriously?
Let's see if I got anything else here for you.
And that's what they did. The police ruled it a suicide.
And on one of the doors in the house had been written, "She saved him. Can he save her?" in black paint.
Yeah.
Officials were hesitant to confirm this information at first, and investigators chose to view it as a suicide note. Rebecca Zahau's family maintains that the message was not written in Rebecca's handwriting and that it didn't sound like something she would have written. When professionals examined Rebecca's body, they found evidence of sexual assault as well as 4 instances of trauma to the head. The theory of Rebecca's head being hit as she dangled from the rope after jumping was posited, but it was noted that it would be unlikely for her body to have rebounded that many times.
Wait. They found evidence of sexual assault? She was on her period.
They found evidence of sexual assault, yes.
That's the weird thing, is she was having her period and she was naked. Again, I know you're not a woman and I know you've never had a period, but I would not want to be naked with my period. She had no protection or anything. So
this was interesting. So, and I don't know if you know this, but
did they find DNA on her?
I don't have that. So the Zahau family sued Adam Sheknai, alleging that he had sexually assaulted Rebecca, murdered her, and then tried to stage it as a suicide. It was a civil case instead of a criminal one. And the 9-3 ruling by jury decided the verdict of holding Adam Sheknai responsible for Rebecca's death, but Adam is not allowed to be officially charged with murder.
Why is he not allowed to be officially charged for murder? I knew that the family had sued for wrongful death, and I knew that they had won. But I don't know why he can't be charged officially by the police for murder, because except for the fact that the police may not think they have enough evidence. Here's the thing. The guy's works on a ferry boat or something on the Mississippi or something.
There's a 2019.
He knows all about knots, and the knots that were binding Rebecca Zahau were, they weren't just haphazard knots. They were official Navy knots or seaman knots or whatever.
Seaman
knots. There you go.
Was that when you take the rope and you just dip it in sperm or what?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
A seaman knot?
A seaman knot.
You guys ever see a semen knot?
It's just not semen. What can I say?
So there's a 2019 documentary, Rebecca Zahau, an ID murder mystery, and it takes a look deeper into Rebecca's case, which I'm sure you've seen. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Sandy Fasten PI is on the case. Again, another strange murder case or another strange murder case to kind of go up there with.
Well, yeah, and I wonder if there's like facts and things that they haven't told us that the police haven't released to the public. That
I'm sure. I mean, even
like,
just reading this, right? Like, I'm just like, well, where's all the rest of the fucking evidence here? You know, like, where's all the rest of the shit, right? Like, there's no fingerprints on the scene. There's no fucking like, I don't know. You know, I mean, it sounds. I think that if you have
and what's the proof of sexual assault? I mean, to me that sounds like a semen knot.
He just knotted up that semen and stuck it right inside her.
It sounds like maybe he left traces of semen, which would be DNA. I mean, how do you know?
Well, no, I think
I don't know.
A sexual assault could be
bruises on her breasts.
No, like some tearing. You know, maybe some rough tearing down there.
Yeah,
you know,
but all right. Well, I don't know. You know, I watch a lot of these shows, and from what I understand,
yes, you do.
Just from touching somebody, you leave your DNA. So how do you commit a sexual assault on somebody without leaving DNA anywhere? I just, I mean, did they check? I'm wondering how thorough of a job the police actually did.
Well, I also think that, you got to wonder, like, okay, well, at what point, did the police come in and just say, oh, it's a suicide, and then fucking just trample and destroy everything, and then, come back and go, maybe it's fucking, I mean, it seems like from the article I just read, it seems like, and that was from, I think, filmdaily.co, filmdaily.co, yeah. It seems like that's what the police went with right off the bat was, hey, this is a suicide, right? But it's very odd because, again, like, and, I mean, never once have I thought, I'm going to kill myself. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to jump off the balcony I'm going to hang myself off the balcony. I'm going to tie this rope to the bedpost, not to the balcony, but to the bedpost. I'm going to take off all my clothes because that's kind of kinky and tie my hands up and my feet. It's going to be hard to jump over the balcony, but I'll figure out a way.
Myself.
And by the way, while I'm at it, let me gag myself.
I'm going to fucking hop over this really high ledge here to get over the balcony. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, it's just, to me, it's absurd. And then, during the special, they talked about how they found a book in Rebecca's room about knots, and they had one of the police department people actually tie themselves up the same way Rebecca was tied up. I mean, it looked like it would be fairly easy to do, but here's the thing. If you're, their whole premise was that she was really upset about the injury to Max and the fact that they didn't know if he was going to live. And as a matter of fact, I think that night she had gotten a phone call from Jonah that said, and maybe a voice message was left that said that he wasn't doing well and he wasn't, they didn't think he was going to make it or something. So the premise was that, that she was really upset about that, and that's why she committed suicide. But it's like, seriously, like, you just happen to have this big long thing of rope, and you happen to have this rope book with pictures and instructions on how to tie knots. And so you're going to go get that, and you're going to study for like 3 or 4 hours and figure out how to do this before you actually commit suicide, and on top of that, naked and with your period. I mean, look,
I think the whole thing to me seems, it's all the bits and pieces of it, right? Is that what a tragic thing to have happened to the little boy, right? Do we say how old the little boy was? Did I say that? 6, 9?
6.
6.
I think it was 6.
I mean, I don't have kids, but I just, I can't imagine how fucking tragic that's got to be when, you're watching a child, is your responsibility, and something like that happens where you're in it. I mean, it's almost just like, oh my God, this can't even be real, and
well, and I could see where she could feel extremely guilty about it.
Oh, I mean, the level of guilt has got to be insane.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wait, yeah. I mean, look, I'll go buy I'll buy something, and then like the next day it's on sale, and I have like an extreme amount of guilt that I didn't just wait to buy it later, So,
well, in most cases, you can actually ask for a price adjustment, just so you know. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like like Target, if you bought something on Saturday night and on Sunday it went on sale, you could take it back. You could take your receipt
that's
back.
Not really what I'm referring to. But yes, it's good to know. But the guilt in that, not in buying something, but in having this thing happen to this child has got to be insane.
Well, and
right?
it's not even your child, so that's even double. I mean,
you're left in charge of watching this kid.
Yeah.
But then you've got to think, okay, so that happens, right? And then she's found 2 days later. So, in that 2 days, there's probably all sorts of different emotions going on with her, depending on how close, the relationship is, with Jonah, with the boyfriend, but there's also got to be a part of him that like, he's got to be pissed off, because there's got to be some anger there as well as the sadness and the shit over his child. So then the weird fucking brother comes in from out of town and he's staying in the guest house. Now, I guess here's my thought on it, right? Is that with all, I always feel weird saying like, well, if I was the guy, cause I don't, my brain doesn't work like that. But why would if I'm this weird brother, right? And all this shit has just happened to my brother's son, why would then I go and like try to sexually assault his girlfriend? I don't know. It just seems very, and look, maybe the guy's a fucking weird pervert, but like.
Well, didn't he have an alcohol problem as well?
Maybe. It didn't say it in this article.
Alcohol and drugs. I think he was inebriated that night, drinking, and I think that he might have had a drug problem as well. He's not the most upstanding citizen, for sure. And his brother Jonah did pay for his defense, which is kind of suspicious as well. I mean, I could see where Jonah would be pissed off at Rebecca, angry, but I don't know. Do you think he put out a hit on her?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, do we think that this was kind of like an inside job, where Jonah's going like, hey, look, here's this fucking chick. She looks like she was way, very much younger than Jonah, right? There was an age gap there, right? So is Jonah calling him Adam, being like, yo, dude, you're the black sheep. Come into town and fucking handle this, fix this, right?
Yeah.
But then also like the weird message on the wall, like that's weird, right? Like that's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. She saved him. Can he save her?
Was that what it was?
Or will you save her? I don't know.
Hold on.
Here's the thing: as I could totally see her being depressed and committing suicide, but not in the manner that she did it. Trying
to find the thing here. Where's the fucking?
I mean, it's fucking huge mansion. There's probably another place to hang yourself besides jumping over the balcony, naked and bound. I mean, that's just to me that's the weird part. If they had found her totally clothed and hanging and not like and not bound like that, then I totally could buy the suicide thing.
She saved him. Can he save her? I mean, what does that mean? I
don't know.
Because then the boy, like the little boy ended up passing away,
I think it sounds like something that maybe somebody who's drunk or, high on drugs might write.
Why? Why is that? Why is that?
Just because they're delusional. They're just not thinking straight. They're committing a murder. Oh, I don't know. I mean, somebody had to fucking plan the whole thing. I mean, it's not it's not like one of those things where you in a minute you fly off the handle and you push somebody and they strike their head and they die, or you put your fingers around their neck, your wrist, and then you choke them. Of course, that takes several minutes to do that, but it's not like it seems to me like it's a very well planned, the rope, how it's tied, tying the person together, the gag. I mean, it's too fucking detailed to be spur of the moment.
See, I disagree with you. I don't think that it's planned out. To me, it seems like, okay, you have this girl, something happened, right? Something happened, and then it's like, shit, now what? And then it's like, okay, well, fucking, tie her up, make it look like a suicide, right? Like just fucking tie the hands, tie the feet. The weird thing about like the hands and the feet though is that I'm wondering if like maybe that was, maybe something had happened to her and she was tied up before. Let's just say this was an inside job. Let's say the brother Adam was responsible for it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was fucking. Maybe they were like, maybe they were making love, and she was like, "Tie me up, Adam. Tie me up like Jonah never would."
Maybe he sexually assaulted her, and I mean, she's naked, so maybe he sexually assaulted her and then tied her up because he didn't know what to do with her at that point, or hit her head a few times and she was knocked out. And so he thought, oh, I'll just leave her like this then. That's what I don't get. It's like, where's the DNA? Where's the DNA? Where, they say they found no fingerprints, no nothing. And again, I have to question the adequacy of the investigation by the San Diego Police Department. Sorry, guys.
But it's not just this. I mean, look, if you go back and you look at the John Bonet murder scene, or the whole John Bonet case, right? Like they opened the house up to like the neighbors were like fucking walking through the house.
I know. And here's the weird part is that I feel like the police automatically fixate on one thing, like with Rebecca Zahau. She committed suicide. So they're going to go about everything they have to do to prove that she committed suicide. Disregarding other things, not keeping the crime scene, pristine and, intact, letting people run through, oh, she committed suicide. And like you said, then days later they go back and they do an investigation. Well, what's there? Nothing, or just too much shit that they can't even, muddle through it and decide whose shoe print is this and whose DNA is that. I mean, it's just too crazy because they've totally contaminated the crime scene.
Well, I think that I think that everybody has it to a certain extent. Is that when you're presented with information regarding whatever, you come to a conclusion, right? And that conclusion might not always be right, but I think that like exactly what you're saying is that there's these issues where, all right, so what do we have? We have a woman hanging from the balcony, and she's naked. All right, well, she fucking killed herself. And then, you kind of form these things around that without necessarily looking at
exactly
the bigger picture, right? The John Benet Ramsey thing, right? What was it? Well, okay, it's a child kidnapped. We have a ransom note. We're fine. She was taken from the house. But then it's like, she's dead in the basement? Oh, shit.
I think and ever since they found her body, I think they focused on the parents. The father did it, or the brother did it, or the mother did it. Somebody in the house. And again, disregarding, I think there was a window open in the basement or something, it's just, again, I see it happen all the time on these shows that I watch. And it's very, that's why I say, it's important not to be surveilled. It's important not to be tracked by government, because if they want to make a crime, if they want to convict you or even accuse you of a crime, they could probably put together enough footage and enough of this and enough of that to prove a case without looking at anything else. And that's, and it's like I said, it's always really frightening when something happens to the spouse. The other spouse is the first one to be suspected.
Well, I think but I think typically, what is it, 80% of the time, like that is who has done it, Yes, but like I just watched the show last night and it was a ID show and this guy was accused of killing. This guy was a real womanizer and he was out, having sex with 10 or 15 women. But he was also having this affair with this woman in his office who was married. Anyway, he got her pregnant and she turned up dead, seriously, 9 months pregnant. The baby was dead. The woman was dead. And they accused the boyfriend who got her pregnant. And they took him to trial twice. And they acquitted him both times because there was just not enough evidence to prove it. But this is where the cops wanted it. This is where they thought all the evidence pointed to.
But a jury didn't necessarily think that. So, whether or not he's guilty or not guilty, I don't know to this day, but it's just a prime example of the cops building the case against you.
But I think that you have to look at, I think typically it's rare that it's, this like something like, for example, I was going to ask you this question, like in the Rebecca Zahau case, right? Do we think that it could have just been a random intruder that came into the house, that broke into the house that night, or maybe someone she knew?
No.
Right. So then I think that it has to be more fair to say, well, we have to look at Adam. We have to look at Jonah. We have to, I watched this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. It was probably last week. I watched this, this thing on Netflix called American Murder, The Family Next Door. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is right up, this is right up Josh and Mom.
Right up Josh's alley. Yeah. Really? Was it good?
Yeah, it was great. You should watch it. It's fantastic. I think you'd love it. But it's interesting because
it's called again?
American Murder, The Family Next Door. And it's essentially...
It was on Netflix?
It's on Netflix, yeah. And it's this case about this husband and wife, Chris Watts, and the wife... I don't like the wife's name. Her name was Shanann.
Oh, I've already seen this story.
Shanann.
Yeah, I can't remember. Go ahead, tell me. I'll fill in the gaps for you.
So essentially, it's interesting the way that it's shot because it basically uses like all the police footage and like text message. Like it was put together very well. It makes it like very engrossing. You're like, wow, okay, what's going on? But so wife comes home. They have 2 kids. She's pregnant. Wife comes home. Shanann comes home from this trip, and she gets in late. And Chris Watts, the husband, goes to work in the morning, and Shanann's friends cannot get a hold of her. They call the police. Police come. The girls are gone. The 2 daughters are gone. Shanann is gone. Chris Watts comes home from work. He's like, what the fuck has happened? What's going on? And
they found him in the grain bins.
I think they were oil tanks, but yeah.
Oil tanks, yeah.
But he's sitting there talking to the police officer saying, look, I don't know. This is really unlike my wife. I can't believe the girls are gone. They took their blankies, whatever. He goes in. He talks to the fucking police. He gives his statement. They have a Ring doorbell. Of course, I didn't capture nothing.
Really, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. That ain't going to tell you anything.
It'll give you the first 20 seconds of the crime.
Yeah,
that's it.
Oh, is that a black truck? Oh, too bad it turned off. I didn't get the license plate.
Really.
Say fuck you, Ring doorbell. And then he goes in and even he does a fucking polygraph test, and the woman's just like, look, we're gonna know. We're gonna fucking know. So you can tell us now, or we can do the polygraph test. He's like, look, I'm telling you guys everything. Does the polygraph test, fails the polygraph test, like miserably.
Yeah.
The detective and the polygraph lady are like, look, you failed the fucking test. Where's your wife? Where's the kids? The wife, I think, was pregnant. Did I already say that? The wife was pregnant.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they find out that he was having an affair with some like younger chick at work. B, they're like, hey, this is your fucking family. Like, you got it. What did you do? And he's like, I didn't fucking do anything. And then he's like being recorded on like the camera inside this like interrogation room. And he's like, look, I guess he'd been there for like 6 hours. He's like, I want to talk to my dad. So his dad comes in, and then he's like, it's just him and his dad, just Chris Watts and the dad. Yeah. And the dad's like, hey, what fucking happened? What's going on? And he's like, it was her. She killed the kids. She strangled the girls. And then I had to strangle her. And then he's like, oh my God, what? And he's like, I got so mad. I and I had to revenge the death of the girls. And the dad's like, what? And then the cops come back in and they're like, where are the bodies? And turns out he like buried Shanann and then threw these girls in these fucking oil tanks. Anyway, he ends up pleading guilty to like all the fucking murders. And so then it goes back on the whole thing that like Shanann killed the daughters. But my point in all this is that, when you're like, oh, they automatically assume it's the fucking husband or whatever, or the spouse or the partner. Well, that's fucking what it usually is. Like, I mean, this case in particular shows like she didn't just disappear out of fucking thin air. You know, the truth of the matter is like, he fucking killed her. He rolled her up in a sheet, put her in the fucking truck, and then picks up his daughters. I mean, how fucking traumatizing is this? Picks his daughter up, his 2 daughters, puts them in the truck next to their wife, the mom, who's dead.
The dead mother, yeah.
Who's like lying on the floor behind the seats. And they're like, what's wrong with mommy? And he's like, oh, she's just sleeping. Drives him out to the fucking place where he works, some fucking middle of nowhere, buries the mom, and then puts fucking bags over the daughters' heads, kills both the daughters, and throws them in the fucking oil tank. But what I'm saying is that this wasn't just some random schmo that showed up to the house and fucking killed this family. Like, it was the husband, because he was having this affair. You know, who fucking knows, right? Like, file for fucking divorce.
Well,
be a man. File for divorce and just be like, yo, I'm fucking done. I can't do this anymore. You know?
You have to.
The guy's like, oh, maybe if I kill my wife and my 2 daughters and my unborn child,
listen,
maybe I'll live happily ever after with fucking Beth Ann, you know, down the road.
I've heard really religious women say, you know, that my church doesn't believe in divorce, so I killed my husband instead. It's like seriously, like, divorce is worse than murder? I don't know. I don't get it, but that's somebody's logic out there. I mean, there are a lot of women that I've seen, you know, shows where they say that. It's like, you know, she didn't want the stigma of being divorced, or the church would, you know, excommunicate her if she was divorced. So she commits a murder instead. I'm sure she thought she'd get away with it.
Insane. But see, and the thing is too, is that I think that in this day and age with all the social media, because they play all these like text messages from like Shanann to her friend. It's actually kind of fun to say now, Shanann. You got to do like more of like a Shanann. You got to do it like that.
I know. I don't know. That's a weird name.
Give it to me.
Shanann.
There you go. Yeah, it's SHAN''AN. Shanann. What if you should have named Sam?
Weird.
Saman.
Saman. No, that's just too weird. Especially, I don't know, names with apostrophes in them. Apostrophes are supposed to show, you know, like ownership or.
Well, it was
apostrophe S.
Anne belonged to Shanann.
Yeah.
But I think
let me just say, in that case, you know, there's a lot of evidence that points to the husband for sure. But there are some cases where the evidence is very flimsy. Like, you know, like how can somebody commit the murder, you know, a gruesome, bloody murder, clean up, and be, you know, halfway across town in 30 minutes? I mean, there are instances where you see the police trying to sell, or the prosecutors trying to sell that narrative. And it's just not, it's, you know, or, you know, but nowadays, like, they have the cell phones pinging, and they can, you know, I'm going to tell you, they know exactly where you are with your cell phone.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, I think that with where technology is nowadays and social media presence, like, you ain't getting by on this shit. You know, you're not fucking, you're having an affair, they're going to fucking find out. You know, and like they could tell by like the pings on the cell phone where he was driving around all day that day.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just like, buddy, like, you don't stand a chance. What a horrible idea you came up with here. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, so again, to get back to like Rebecca Zahau, you know, I just wonder if, again, you know, maybe this was not Adam Schicknai acting alone. Maybe this, or maybe this was a call from the mom of the kid, of Max's mom, you know, Jonah's ex-wife, being like, Jonah, you got to, yeah, like, this is fucked. You got to fix this shit. Or maybe she called somebody in, you know?
Maybe she didn't even call Jonah and say anything. Maybe she just said, hey, this bitch is going down.
Right. Because that's, I mean, look, that's a lot.
That's a big, huge possibility. But again, you know, nobody else was investigated. I mean, you know, from what I understand, again, they kind of blew the crime scene. They kind of, you know, it was like the same type of thing where, you know, she committed suicide.
Well, but also though, not to, and look, I'm not, in no way am I, you know, I like to ride straight down the middle, you know, I'm not taking sides here, but like, look, from a police point of view, you know, it's got to be frustrating to investigate a crime scene where maybe there is not a lot of like stuff, You know what I'm saying? Like maybe you're just like, all right, so fuck, we don't have any fingerprints here. Or hey, you let the fucking the deputies come in and walk all the fucking around here, so now we're fucked. You know? So like, so what do you do at that point? You can't just, I mean, as a police officer or whatever, or detective, like you can't just start pointing fingers. You can't say, oh, here was this person. Like,
I think they do. I think that's what happens is they do start pointing. I mean, they start pointing fingers at one suspect, not at each other for being incompetent.
No, but I'm saying like you can't just sit there. You
cover
can't
for each other,
right? But you can't look at Max's mom and say, well, maybe she called someone and arranged. Like you can't do that. You can't just start creating scenarios. I think you can look at Adam, the brother, Adam Schickney.
Maybe you look and see if there's any. Maybe you check bank records and see if there's anybody's been paid off a large amount of money. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure maybe you look for associates of people, and I don't know. I don't know how you find
but I just imagine
brought in a third person.
But at some point,
commit a murder.
You've got to come up to a dead end. So.
Wouldn't you say, okay, like if I want to pay you to go murder somebody, wouldn't you say, I want you to make it look like suicide? So you wouldn't go through this whole binding and nakedness. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, look, I get it, right?
You just go and fucking do it. You'd either shoot her, or slit her throat, or just throw her off the balcony fully clothed. Unless you come to the house and she's in the bathtub or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole thing is very, like, if I was sitting in the room with, police and detectives, I would be sitting there saying, guys, this thing's fucking weird. Like, this is fucking weird. This is a weird way to find a body that, quote unquote, we're pushing as suicide, right? Like, who does this? But again, look, like, fucking, I don't want to play devil's advocate. I like to roll down the middle, but
that's what I like about you. You're always rolling right down the fucking middle. It's like, take a side, you wuss.
I'm just rolling down the middle.
They call me Switzerland. I'm totally neutral. In case you don't know what that means.
As Fred Durst.
Switzerland used to be totally neutral on everything. They still are.
Same here, baby. Same here. As Fred Durst used to say, rolling, 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 rolling.
Yeah, I didn't know he said that. And I don't know why that even makes a difference.
So,
okay.
I like to roll right down the middle. So, look, flip it, right? Maybe nothing. Maybe Adam and Jonah and the mom didn't do anything. Maybe this was a fucking suicide. And maybe, she's deep in depression and she's deep in grief and she's...
now we're attributing the psychological aspects of Elisa Lam onto Rebecca Zahau.
But I think that you have to look at it, though, because how many, if you go back and you listen to our Elisa Lam, and look, granted, I think, we are very, we take everything we say with a grain of salt, but like, we have fun. Like we're, but we had all these theories about Elisa Lam. Was it a ghost? Was she playing the Korean elevator game, transferring herself to another portal, another dimension? Did she get lost in the dimension? I mean, this was shit. This is real shit we talked about, and then we watched this fucking 4-part documentary, and we come back, and we're like, I guess she had some mental health issues. Went up there and
again, had they just I mean, seriously, like, had that been well publicized in the beginning, and the fact that the hatch on the water tank was open when it was found. I mean, that's the thing is when you and I first heard about the story, I never heard that I heard the water tank was closed. No? Yes?
Yeah, the same here. That's, information I was presented with was that the only way to get up on the roof was through a door, which, let off an alarm, and that, she was found in this water tank and the hatch was closed. I gotta say, if I was fucking a police officer though, wait, I take that back. I'm not fucking police officers. That was weird.
If you want to, go ahead.
Slip of the tongue.
You could find a
if I was out there fucking a police officer. Let me try that again.
Fucking police officer.
That was weird. If I was a police officer and I was in charge of searching this rooftop, right? I would have climbed, like, that's like so beyond me. Like, hey, with these four, I mean, I guess, I don't know,
Josh,
hindsight, right? Hindsight.
Josh, Josh, they did it at night. They did it with the light of helicopters.
Right, but I would have been the first.
It's like, stop it, you guys. Go back the next fucking morning and look again, because guess what? It's fucking dark.
But even if it's dark, though, right? If you're up there and you've got your little flashlights out, like, I would have climbed up and been like, that's weird that water tank. There's that where water tank has that hatch open. That's weird. That's kind of an odd thing to look at here, huh? Out of the Ford.
What I'm saying is that during a daytime search, they might have actually noticed that. They might have climbed up the ladder and seen that the thing was open. I don't think you can do a thorough search of an outdoor area at nighttime.
Well, I also think, I mean, let's be honest, right? Hindsight's 20/20, right? So it's far easier to find the needle in the haystack when you know where the needle is. Right? If you don't know where the needle is, right? If this body could be anywhere in the fucking Los Angeles County, maybe you are like, hey, yeah, we looked at the fucking rooftop, you know?
But if the helicopter flew over during the day, I bet they would have seen it.
No, they wouldn't have seen the body. They would have seen the water tank.
No, they would have
with the hatch open. I'm sure that they saw the water tank with the hatch open at night, and they were probably like, "Fucking, it's a water tank. No big deal." You know, fuck, we're over here fucking police officers.
All right, I don't see. I just feel like that. I feel like that was negligence on their part. That they should have searched the rooftop. If they want to do it at night, like because we think she might be up here, then do it at night. But you have to go back the next day and do a really thorough search, because I mean that's where she was, for God's sakes. They should have found her.
I agree.
And as far as Rebecca Zahau goes, I don't think she committed suicide. I just don't think that.
Well, I'm just saying. I think it's important to talk about that angle, because that is an angle, and because that is a possibility. Is that she could have been like, "Fuck, I'm distraught. I'm grieving. I cannot live with myself." I mean, that's heavy.
Let me pull out the book and figure out how to tie some knots. Come on.
Yeah, it's weird, right? But so is the Elisa Lam thing. It's like,
I know, but Elisa Lam, we found out, has really bad mental problems. We haven't heard that about Rebecca Zahau.
True, but we haven't heard a lot about Rebecca Zahau. But what if this was something that triggered something? Like it triggered a full fucking breakdown. Look, I'm not ruling anything out. I'm rolling straight down the line, the middle here. I'm just saying, you got to look at this part of it too, is that maybe she was like, fuck, I'm so distraught. This is all my fault. Jonah's never going to love me.
Let me rip off my clothes, tie up my hands, gag my mouth, and jump over the balcony.
A little weird.
Come on.
It's a little strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's very weird. I mean, again, you want to jump over the balcony, leave your hands free, have your clothes on. Again, as a woman, I'm going to tell you, I mean, would you commit suicide naked?
I think that that any piece of that you could take like one piece away and it would like, oh, okay, it's just suicide, right? Like it was like a little too far, right? Like if she was naked but her hands and feet weren't tied up, you'd be like, okay, well that's weird, but okay. Like if she had clothes on but her hands and feet were tied up, you'd be like, oh, okay, well maybe she just If her hands and feet weren't tied up, but she had a thing in her mouth, but then she was also close. Like, if you just took like one piece away, I feel like it wouldn't be as weird and bizarre. But it's the fact that she was naked, the fucking rope was all the way across the fucking room in the bedroom. She was gagged. Her hands and legs were tied, so now she's hopping over the balcony. Like, holy shit, And yeah,
and she's this tiny little gal again, She wasn't very tall. She wasn't, I mean, that's the thing is the height of the balcony. I mean, it would have been quite a leap for her.
It was like what was it? With like pole vault? Like she's doing like a pole vault.
Exactly. She's doing a pole vault.
Hand tied up.
She's tied up. I mean, it's like
pogoing to the fucking edge of the balcony.
And you know what? And the thing is that I feel like if somebody was hired to do it, or if somebody, that's why I feel like it was the brother and that maybe he was drunk or on drugs, because it's just that bizarre. If you hired somebody to kill somebody and you said, I want you to make it look like a suicide, you're not going to rip off somebody's clothes, strip them down naked, tie up their hands and then throw them off the balcony. If the brother sexually assaulted her and maybe now she's unconscious maybe he ties her up and, and that's why I'm saying, it's just kind of like a demented kind of way to present a murder.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange. I'm surprised that it was not, at least from the stuff that I've found. I haven't watched that ID thing, but it feels like it was not investigated further, right? It feels like it was kind of like, hey,
no,
this
they
is what
did.
it was.
They actually reopened the case because, or maybe they didn't. I mean, the Zahau family, I don't know if they requested that they reopen the case, and maybe it wasn't reopened criminally. But I did know about the civil suit, and I knew that what's his name, Adam, had lost the case. So, he owes them like millions of dollars, which he'll never pay.
So that's what I don't understand, though. Is it like, so you lose the civil case, but then you can't, which basically shows that like somehow you were involved, right, or responsible, but then you can't have a criminal case because there's no charges to be brought against you?
Well, I think the bar for guilt is a lot higher in a criminal case than in a civil case. So I don't think one has to do anything with the other. I think you can do both. But it seems to me that people file a civil case because they usually lose or are unable to get a criminal case. So, but I think that you can really do both, not simultaneously probably, but the civil case would be to recoup some sort of monetary value for the person's life or the stress or whatever. And the criminal case would be actually to convict the killer, to find somebody guilty and, send them to prison to pay for the crime. So I just think that you have to have, I think in a criminal case, you have to there's a higher standard of proof. And I don't know that the police department had that. And on top of that, like I said, I don't know if you've watched it, but I'm sure it's the ID special that I saw where they actually have a female police officer, who binds her hands exactly like Rebecca's are bound. But, it's not something I couldn't do it unless I pulled out a book and, and started reading about it. And, I'd have to give myself lessons. I wouldn't be able to do it easily, number one. And number two, if I was really suicidal, that would be the last fucking thing on my mind. How I'm going to tie up my hands, you know?
I mean, I don't, it just, people do weird shit, and, like I'm reminded of, this was very tragic, but I think a couple of years ago, there was a magician who committed suicide at the Magic Castle. And it was one of those things where like he was a performer for the week, and we got to wrap this up soon, but he was a performer for the week. I think he had done his first show in the room that he was performing in. And then when the MC or whatever came in to check on him to make sure he was ready for like the second show, he was found in like the little backstage area. He had hung himself. And there was all these reports that had come out in the beginning that he was like just in his boxers, and I think those were false. I think he was fully clothed. But my point in all this is that he did not live in Southern California. He did not live in Los Angeles. He lived back east somewhere, I believe, or Midwest. He had a wife. He had 2 kids. And there was rumors that he had been not doing, well mentally. He'd been off for quite some time. He had been suffering some depression, which is a real serious thing. You get into some of the people that we've lost over the last years, the rock stars, but I always thought it was so interesting that this magician, had to have gone to a store to buy the rope. You know what I'm saying? Like, it had to have been thought out enough to where it was like, and maybe he didn't get it that day. I mean, maybe he had it with him, right? But at some point he had to buy the rope to be like, I'm going to do this. And then why the Magic Castle? Everyone says, well, that was his safe place or whatever. But I look at it and I'm like, man, how fucking morbid. Like, you killed yourself in between shows or whatever. And like the Magic Castle was packed full of people that night, and it just seemed.
Well, maybe that's how he wanted to go out, like as a, I mean, again, you hear about these people. I mean, it's a different thing, but like these mass murderers where they, like I saw a show last night where these two brothers killed pretty much their whole family. And then their plan was to start a trip across country and just shoot people. Just shoot and kill people. So, it's like they wanted to go out famous. So maybe that had something to do with it. My life's been worthless, but now I'm going to, this is my safe space. This will, it just adds to the mystique of the Magic Castle.
But see, I don't know if I take it. I mean, again, a lot of the reports were that he felt safe. He felt himself. He felt he was among friends.
Wasn't there a gal who fell off the roof or something?
I don't think so. But I was no, but I always thought that it was there was not the Magic Castle roof.
Yeah,
I think you're thinking it was somebody else. It was like a daughter or something, or an assistant who fell off of something.
Yeah. She was affiliated with the Magic Castle
somehow, yeah,
in some sort of way,
yeah somehow. But again, this case of this magician, I always thought it was such a bizarre way to kind of off yourself, or to commit suicide. I just was always like, man, like. Why? Why did you do it there?
Well, first of all, understand buying a rope in advance is not a big deal because people who commit suicide, it's not like, oh, the thought just came to me today and now I'm going to do it. It's probably a state of depression that they're in for quite some time.
But what I'm saying though is that because he traveled, right? It wasn't like he was home and he just did this and he picked it up months ago at the hardware store. Like he traveled, right? So maybe he did pick it up. But then he packed it, right? Maybe he bought it when he arrived in LA. Maybe he bought it the day of. No one knows, right? No one knows this. But the whole thing leading up, my whole point in all this is that to me it was bizarre. It was a bizarre kind of way to do it, right? So to go back to the Rebecca Zahau thing was that I don't think you can rule out that like suicide or taking one's own life cannot be bizarre or strange or weird. I don't necessarily think that that's what happened with Rebecca Zahau, but I think that it's worth mentioning that it's possible,
Yeah, I mean, it is possible, but I don't think that's what happened either. So there you go. I don't know how we're going to find out ever the real truth.
Well, hopefully someone comes forth because my mom Sandy Fasten PI is she's been on the case for quite some time. I think I'm gonna try to see if I can find this on Investigation Discovery on Demand when we wrap this up. Now I'm curious. I want more details.
Yeah. You'll enjoy it. I did watch it. I mean, I wouldn't mind watching it again, but
there's something that just released on Netflix called like the Mormon murders or something. I don't know. I was like, I don't even know what this is about, but I'm interested. All right.
Is that about the? I've probably seen that one.
You probably know what the case is all about, Sandy. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Thank you guys for hanging with us for the last few weeks as we talk about true crime and murder and mysterious murders.
Aren't we gruesome and gross?
What were we going to call the podcast?
I don't know. Gruesome, gross, and gory.
Yeah.
Gory, gruesome, gross.
Gory, gruesome, and gross with Josh and Sandy. Yeah, this is just another piece of the My Mom Sandy legacy. Is that her?
If you guys have any additional information or any theories, we're always open to covering those on our next podcast. So just shoot us an email or whatever.
Yeah, or if you guys have things that you guys are curious about that you were like, oh, we want them to talk about it. I think a long time ago, I was like, oh, if you guys want us to talk about anything or answer any questions, just fucking message us. We'll do it. I mean, we're trying to stay off of the whole COVID thing. So, if there's something in particular, it doesn't have to be murder associated, mystery cases, murder cases. And of course, we'll have a new podcast that goes up every Tuesday. This one is actually, because we're actually recording this midday Monday. So this will actually go up probably by Monday evening, it'll be up. And then if you guys need to get a hold of us, Mom?
My Mom Sandy Podcast at gmail.com.
Wait, did you just say at
Am I right?
Wait, did you just say at gmail.com?
No.
That's
What did I call
like.
it? A semen knot.
A semen knot. I don't know. There's all these semen knots everywhere.
They found them all over her body, semen knots.
They found semen knots splattered in her hair. It was gross.
Yeah. Again, even though we're making jokes, we understand that somebody lost their life, and
it's very tragic. Very tragic.
Yeah. So
wait, okay, so it was my mom Sandy podcast at gmail.com or com?
Yes, com.
Thank you. And Instagram, if they need to find us on Instagram because they want to follow us because they don't follow us already, how would they find us on Instagram?
I don't know. My Mom Sandy podcast.
At my mom Sandy podcast.
At my Mom Sandy podcast. There you go.
And then you guys can always also text. If you know us directly, you can just fucking text me because I'll talk about it. I still don't know what my cousin Brian does for work.
When you do that, people really don't know what you're saying.
No, they do. They do. Rodman tells me all the time. He's like, I know exactly what you're saying when you get off. I'm going to close the mic and you get all sensual.
That's just disgusting.
That's my semen knot voice.
There you go. All right.
A semen knot kind of almost sounds like a
seaman. It's a seaman knot.
No, but it sounds like a different kind of like astronaut. Like
it's a ocean knot.
No, that's not what it sounds like. But like they're checking off, like they're taking roll. Like okay, so who are we sending up there to? Who are we sending up to in the Mars rover? It's like all right, well we got 4 astronauts, 2 doctors, and 3 semen knots.
3 semen knots, really? There you go. I like that.
It's like literally just 3. It's like 3 droppers full of semen just in a Ziploc baggie.
Those are our 3 semen knots.
It's like Sergeant Fasten. Can you be in charge of these semen knots? Oh, I've got them, sir. They're strapped to my leg, my right leg.
Yeah. All right, we need to go, Josh.
All right.
This is like too fucking long.
It's a long one.
I got shit to do.
Same. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. You're gonna come in, or I might have I'll see you tomorrow for taxes. We'll do taxes tomorrow. Tomorrow's tax day.
All right. Well, let's get off the air and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, you wrap it up for everybody.
All right. Everybody be safe out there. And
that was a little premature, huh?
I know. You know what I always say. All right. Very good.